Captain Dae-Hyan stared at the navigation screen with narrowed eyes. Something was wrong with the readings, but he couldn't figure out what. The empty sector of space ahead should have been just that, empty. No stars, no planets, nothing but the cold vacuum between galaxies. Yet his instruments kept insisting there was something there. "Hannah, run another scan," he said to his navigation officer. "I want to know what's causing these fluctuations." Hannah's fingers moved across her console with practiced ease. She had been with Dae-Hyan for 3 years now, ever since the Horizon's Edge first launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. She knew every quirk of their vessel, every strange noise it made during jump sequences. This wasn't one of those quirks. "Captain, I'm picking up quantum distortions. They don't match anything in our database." She paused, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of her screens. "It's almost like space is folded here, like something is hiding behind reality itself." Dae-Hyan leaned back in his command chair. Standard protocol said they should report this to Earth Command and wait for instructions. But they were 6 months away from home at light speed, and any message would take just as long to reach headquarters. By the time they got approval to investigate, another ship might have already claimed the discovery. "Take us closer," he ordered. "Nice and slow. I want all sensors active." The ship moved forward through the darkness. Taiyang, their chief engineer, appeared on the bridge carrying a datapad. He looked worried, which was never a good sign. Taiyang only left the engine room when something was seriously wrong or seriously interesting. "Captain, our new jump drive is acting strange," Taiyang said. "It's resonating with something out there. I think whatever we're approaching uses similar technology." "Similar to our experimental drive?" Dae-Hyan asked. "That's impossible. We only finished testing it 6 months ago. There's no way anyone else has this tech." "I know what I'm reading," Taiyang insisted. "Something out there is using dimensional folding, just like our drive does." The implications hung in the air. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. They had explored perhaps 100 star systems, found no signs of intelligent life, and assumed they were alone. The jump drive that Horizon's Edge carried was cutting-edge technology, barely understood even by its creators. If something else in space used the same principles, it meant they weren't alone. It meant someone else had figured out the secrets of folded space long before humanity. "Minji, I want you on standby," Dae-Hyan said to their biologist through the intercom. "If we find anything living, you're our first line of analysis." "Understood, Captain," came the reply. They drifted closer. The quantum fluctuations grew stronger, making the ship shudder slightly. Hannah's screens filled with data that made no sense. Space itself seemed to bend here, curves and angles that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional reality. Then it appeared. One moment there was nothing. The next, something massive materialized before them. It wasn't a ship, at least not like any ship humans had built. It looked more like a city in space, a vast structure of metal and light that stretched for miles in every direction. Towers spiraled upward and inward, defying normal geometry. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that might have been writing or might have been decoration. "My God," Hannah whispered out the station, if that's what it was, hung in space like a dream. Its surface shimmered as if not entirely real, phasing in and out of normal space. Dae-Hyan realized what had happened. Their experimental jump drive had accidentally pierced whatever cloaking field kept this place hidden. They had stumbled through a door that was never meant to open for humans. "I'm not detecting any active defenses," Hannah reported, her voice shaky. "Either they don't have any, or we're too primitive to register as a threat." That second option didn't sit well with Dae-Hyan, but he had to know more. They had found something incredible, something that would change everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. He couldn't turn back now. Taiyang, can we dock with it? The engineer studied his screens. There's a bay on the lower section. Looks like it's designed for vessels much larger than us, but we can fit. The atmospheric readings show breathable air inside. Breathable by human standards? Minji's voice came through the intercom, sharp with scientific curiosity. Exactly by human standards, Taiyang replied. Nitrogen-oxygen mix, temperature around 20 degrees Celsius, standard pressure. It's like they built it for us. Dai Haiyan made his decision. Take us in. Everyone suit up, but leave helmets off unless the air proves toxic. I want to look friendly if anyone's home. The Horizon's edge glided into the docking bay. The massive doors sealed behind them with a hiss that they could hear even through their hull. Lights activated automatically, revealing a space that could have held 50 human vessels. Their small exploration ship looked like a toy in comparison. They gathered at the airlock. Dai Haiyan, Hana, Taiyang, and Minji, the 4 senior officers of the Horizon's Edge. The rest of the crew would remain aboard, ready to leave at a moment's notice if things went wrong. The station's air proved breathable. They stepped out onto a floor made of some smooth black material that reflected their images like dark water. The docking bay was empty except for markings on the walls. Symbols that might have been words and languages never spoken on Earth. This way, Hana said, pointing to an open corridor. Her navigation training gave her an instinct for finding the important parts of any structure. They walked through halls that seemed to shift around them, walls that were solid one moment and transparent the next. Through those transparent sections, they glimpsed other rooms. Libraries filled with crystal data storage. Gardens growing plants that glowed with their own light. And finally, a massive chamber with 7 thrones, arranged in a circle. But it was the 8th throne that made them all stop and stare. It sat separate from the others, elevated slightly and marked with a symbol carved deep into the metal. Dai Haiyan approached it slowly, drawn by something he couldn't name. When he was close enough to touch the symbol, his breath caught in his throat. He knew this symbol. Every human knew it. They had found it carved in caves, painted on ancient pottery, written in the oldest texts from every civilization on Earth. A circle with 8 lines radiating outward, representing the sun or life, or the universe itself, depending on who you asked. That's human, Minji said, her voice barely a whisper. That's a human symbol, thousands of years old. Taiyang found the archive terminals near the thrones. His fingers moved across controls that lit up at his touch, responding to him as if they had been waiting for someone just like him to arrive. Data began flowing across holographic screens, too fast to read, but slow enough to glimpse pieces of truth. Images of Earth, images of humans, images of ships that looked nothing like current human technology, but everything like the station they now stood in. And dates, calculations that made no sense because they stretched back millions of years before humanity was supposed to exist. Dai Haiyan reached out and touched the 8th throne. The metal was warm under his fingers, welcoming. We were never supposed to find this place, he said quietly. But I think we were meant to sit in that chair. Taiyang worked through the night, if night meant anything in the endless darkness of space. He had connected his portable equipment to the station systems, creating a bridge between human technology and whatever ancient power source kept this place running. The station seemed to welcome his presence, almost eager to share its secrets. Captain, you need to see this, he called across the chamber. Dai Haiyan had barely slept since they boarded the station 12 hours ago. None of them had. How could they sleep when they stood in a place that shouldn't exist, reading history that rewrote everything humanity thought it knew about itself? The holographic displays now showed clear images. Cities that made Earth's greatest metropolises look like small villages. Ships that could swallow moons. Technology so advanced It seemed like magic. And at the center of it all, humans. Not modern humans exactly, but close enough that there was no mistaking them. They called themselves the Architects. Hannah read from the translated text flowing across her screen. They shaped worlds. They built the foundation for galactic civilization. They worked alongside 7 other species as equals. Minji stood before a display showing genetic sequences. Her scientific training had prepared her to read DNA like others read books. What she saw made her hands shake. These are human genes. Not similar. Not close. Exact matches. But these records are millions of years old. That's impossible, Haiyan said, but his voice carried no conviction. They stood in a station that proved impossible things were routine. The Architects existed 2 million years ago, Taiyang continued, pulling up more data. They were the master builders of the galaxy. Every habitable world, every space station, every piece of infrastructure that makes interstellar civilization possible, they built it. The other species provided resources, knowledge, protection, but the Architects were the ones who made it all real. The displays showed the council in session, all 8 thrones occupied. The Architect's representative was a tall woman with features that could have belonged to any modern human. She laughed at something one of the crystalline beings said. She argued passionately with a creature made of living metal. She stood as an equal among beings whose species had existed for hundreds of millions of years. Where did they go? Haiyan asked the question that haunted all of them. Taiyang's face was grim. That's where it gets complicated. About 50,000 years ago, all mention of the Architects stops. Completely, like someone erased them from history. The records just say they departed, and the 8th chair has remained empty ever since. 50,000 years ago, Minji repeated slowly. That's right around when modern humans appeared on Earth. We have fossil records of our species going back about that far. Before that, our ancestors were more primitive, less developed. Hannah was searching through different archives, her navigation training helping her find connections others might miss. There's something here called the Mercy Protocol. It's sealed under multiple encryption layers, but I think I can access it. Her fingers danced across the controls. The display changed. New text appeared, written in a language that the station system struggled to translate. It was older than the rest, written with a weight of sorrow that transcended language barriers. By unanimous decision of the 7, Hannah read aloud, the Mercy Protocol is enacted. The Architects have discovered knowledge that threatens all existence. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped by force. For the survival of reality itself, they must be contained. The genetic weapon has been deployed. Within 1 generation, the Architects will revert to a primitive state. Their memories will fade. Their technology will fail. They will be relocated to their homeworld and quarantined indefinitely. May the universe forgive us for what we have done. Silence fell over the chamber. The words hung in the air like a death sentence delivered millions of years too late. They didn't leave, Minji said, her voice hollow. They were attacked, regressed, turned back into primitives. She pulled up her genetic data again, comparing it with the Architect sequences. Look at this. Modern human DNA contains markers, like switches that have been turned off. Dormant genes that match the Architects perfectly. We're not descendants of the Architects. We are the Architects. Just broken, damaged, reset. Haiyan sank into one of the empty thrones, his legs unable to support him anymore. Earth is the quarantine. We've been prisoners on our own planet for 50,000 years and never knew it. What knowledge could be so dangerous? Taiyang asked. What did they discover that made the Council do something this terrible? Hannah continued searching, going deeper into the archives. The station's systems resisted, throwing up warnings that she ignored. Finally, she found a reference. The void equation. That's what they called it. A mathematical proof that revealed the true nature of reality. More displays activated, showing complex mathematics that hurt to look at. Formulas that bent back on themselves. Equations that proved and disproved their own existence simultaneously. At the center of it all, a simple conclusion that the architects had reached through brilliant, terrible logic. They proved reality is artificial, Minji read, her scientific mind struggling with the concept. The universe is a construct, a simulation. Everything we see, everything we are, exists inside something else. The architects found the edge of the program, found the walls of our reality, and they tried to break through. Taiyang pulled up more records. They were building something, a device that could pierce the boundaries of reality itself. They wanted to reach whatever existed beyond our universe. The council discovered what they were doing and panicked. If the architects succeeded, if they punched a hole through reality, everything might collapse. Every star, every planet, every living thing could be erased in an instant. So the council attacked first, Daeyon said bitterly. They destroyed an entire species to save the rest. Not destroyed, Minji corrected. Regressed. The genetic weapon didn't kill the architects. It rewrote their DNA, removed the genes responsible for their intelligence, their memory, their ability to understand the very concepts they had been working with. In one generation, the greatest minds in the galaxy became primitive humans scratching pictures on cave walls. Hana found more files, these ones more recent. The Council has been monitoring Earth ever since. They have observation posts throughout the solar system. They've been watching us evolve, watching us slowly climb back up the ladder of civilization. Every time we get too advanced too quickly, they intervene. Subtly, carefully, but they push us back down. The Dark Ages, Taiyang said suddenly. The Bronze Age collapse. The fall of the Romang Empire. Every time human civilization makes rapid advances, something happens to set us back centuries. That's not natural. That's the Council maintaining their quarantine. Daehyun stood up, anger burning through his exhaustion. They've been controlling us, limiting us, keeping us ignorant for 50,000 years. He turned to Taiyang. Can you hide us from their sensors? If this station has been here all along without anyone noticing, there must be stealth technology we can use. Already on it, Taiyang replied. Our ship is cloaked behind the same dimensional field that hides the station. As long as we don't do anything stupid, we're invisible. Good. Keep searching. I want to know everything about the architects, about what they discovered, about this void equation. Daehyun looked at the eighth throne with new understanding. And I want to know if the Council has any plans for what happens when humans finally rediscover space travel on their own. Minji gasped, staring at her screen. Captain, there's something else. The genetic weapon, it had a trigger built into it. A failsafe. When humans with architect genes access these archives while having independently achieved space travel, something activates. Activates what? Hannah asked. The dormant genes. The switched-off parts of our DNA. Minji's hands trembled as she pointed at the display. It's already started. We accessed these archives. We triggered it. Within a generation, every human alive will start to remember. Not completely, not all at once, but fragments. Dreams of ships we never built. Knowledge of mathematics we were never taught. The architects knew what would happen to them. They accepted it. But they left a gift for their descendants. They made sure we would wake up eventually. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in patterns that needed no translation. They had been discovered. The Council knows we're here, Taiyang reported, his face pale. And they're coming. The chamber transformed around them. The 7 thrones began to glow with different colors, each one pulsing with a light that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal space. Dayhayan pulled his crew back toward the archives, unsure whether to run or stand their ground. Before they could decide, the first council member appeared. It materialized above its throne as a holographic projection, but the presence felt real enough to make the air heavy. The being was tall and slender, its body made entirely of light that shifted through colors humans had no names for. Its form suggested a vaguely humanoid shape, but the details changed constantly, never quite settling into something the human eye could fully process. "The lumens," Hannah whispered. Recognizing the species from the archive data they had studied, 6 more projections appeared in rapid succession. A being that looked like living crystal, its body made of thousands of geometric shards that rotated slowly around a central core. An aquatic creature that somehow maintained form despite being made entirely of water, its surface rippling with thoughts that showed as patterns of waves. A metallic entity that seemed built rather than born, its body a perfect fusion of machine and life. A plant-like being that was actually thousands of smaller organisms working as one collective mind, its thoughts slow but deep as ancient forests. A gaseous entity that held shape through sheer will, its body a swirling storm of colors and possibility. And finally, a being made of living stone, its surface marked with lines that might have been age, or might have been writing. The 7 representatives of the Galactic Council had gathered. The 8th throne remained empty, a reminder of what was lost. "They don't know we're here," Taiyang whispered, checking his equipment. "The station systems are still hiding us. We can hear and see them, but they can't see us." "Not yet." The Lumen spoke first, its voice like music played on instruments that didn't exist. The station systems translated the sounds into words the humans could understand. "We gather in emergency session. The quarantine has been breached. Humans have discovered the council station." "Impossible," the crystalline Starbound said, its voice like glass chimes in the wind. "The dimensional field has held for 50,000 years. No primitive species could pierce it." "Apparently, these primitives could," the aquatic Deepsinger replied, its voice carrying the weight of ocean depths. "Our sensors detected their vessel. It uses dimensional folding technology. Crude, inefficient, but functional. They stumbled through our defenses by accident." The metallic forged kin's mechanical voice cut through. "This is unacceptable. The Mercy Protocol was meant to contain them indefinitely. How did they achieve advanced physics so quickly?" "Because we stopped intervening too soon," the Root Mind Collective said, its voice slow and thoughtful like wind through leaves. "We assumed their natural development would take another 1,000 years at minimum. We reduced our monitoring presence in their solar system 50 years ago. They advanced faster than projected." Dayhayan felt sick. They were talking about humanity like rats in a lab, discussing how their experiment had gotten out of control. The gaseous whisperwind's voice was barely audible, like thoughts spoken directly into the mind. "The question is not how they achieve this, but what we do now. Do we enact the Mercy Protocol again? Reset them once more? Can we?" The ancient stillborn asked, its voice like grinding stone. The protocol was designed for a species at the peak of power, not one just beginning to explore space. Using it now might cause unpredictable genetic damage. The lumens dimmed slightly, a sign of concern. "There is another problem. The humans are aboard the council station. They have accessed the archives. If they discovered their true history, if they learned about the architects and the void equation, the knowledge itself may be dangerous." "We should have destroyed this station," the Starbound said sharply. "It has sat empty for millennia, a monument to our guilt. Now it becomes our undoing." "We kept it as a reminder," the Deepsinger replied. "A warning to never again face such a terrible choice. The architects were our friends, our partners in building this civilization. What we did to them haunts every species in this council. Minji grabbed Dae-Hyan's arm, tears running down her face. "They're talking about genocide like it's a policy decision." She whispered that the forged kin spoke again. "Sentiment does not change facts. The architects discovered the void equation. They proved that our reality is a construct, a simulation running on substrate we cannot perceive. They built a device to breach the boundaries, to reach whatever exists beyond our universe. The risk was total. If they succeeded, reality itself might have collapsed. Every living thing in existence could have been erased. We don't know that for certain," the root mind countered. "The architects believed they could safely pierce the boundary. They had calculations, models, theories. We destroyed them before they could prove whether their approach would work or fail. Because we could not risk it," the stillborn said with finality. "Even a small chance of universal extinction outweighed everything else. We made the hard choice. The only choice." The whisper wind's voice grew stronger. "But was it right? For 50,000 years, I have asked this question. We saved reality by condemning an entire species to primitive ignorance. We became jailers and executioners. Are we better than what we feared the architects might become? This debate is old and leads nowhere," the lumen said. "We must decide what to do about the current breach. These humans, descendants of the architects, have learned the truth. We cannot allow that knowledge to spread to their homeworld. Then we mind-wipe them," the Shardborn suggested. "Remove the memories, alter their ship's logs, send them back to Earth with false data about an empty sector of space. Humanity continues its development, and we increase monitoring to prevent future accidents." "And if they've already transmitted data to Earth?" the Deepsinger asked. "Their vessel uses primitive communication," the Forgekin replied. "We checked. No signals have left this sector. They are still isolated." Dae-Hyan clenched his fists. They were planning to steal the truth from his crew, to send them home as puppets with false memories. Humanity would remain in ignorance, controlled and limited by beings who claimed to act for the greater good. "There is a greater problem," the root mind said slowly. "The archives have a failsafe. The architects built a genetic trigger into their descendants. If humans with the dormant architect genes access these archives after independently achieving space travel, the trigger would activate. The dormant genes would begin to awaken." Silence fell over the council. "Has this happened?" the lumens asked quietly. "Unknown. But if these humans accessed the archive databases, if they studied the genetic records, the trigger may have already activated. Then it's too late for mind-wiping," the Whisperwind said. "Within a generation, humans across Earth will begin to remember fragments of architect knowledge. The quarantine is ending, whether we want it or not." "No," the stillborn rumbled. "We still have options. We can extend the Mercy Protocol, not to reset the humans, but to remove the awakening genes before they fully activate. It would require deploying the genetic weapon again, this time as a preventative measure." "That would kill millions," the Deepsinger protested. "The weapon is indiscriminate. Releasing it into Earth's biosphere would cause mass sterility, genetic damage across multiple generations." "You're talking about controlled genocide." "I'm talking about survival," the stillborn countered. "We stopped the architects once. We can stop their descendants before they reach the same dangerous conclusions, before they attempt to breach reality again and risk everything we protected for millions of years." The council began to argue among themselves, voices rising in holographic debate. Some argued for mercy, for giving humanity a chance. Others insisted on strict control, on maintaining the quarantine at any cost. The fate of billions of humans hung in the balance, while 7 alien species debated their right to exist as a free people. Hana looked at Dae-Hyan. "We can't let them decide this without us. We're not lab rats. We're people." "I know," Dae-Hyan replied. "But what can we do?" We're four humans hiding in the archives, while beings millions of years older than our species decide our future. Tai Yang held up his datapad, his eyes bright with possibility. Actually, I have an idea. The station systems respond to us, to human genetic markers. The architects built this place, and parts of it still recognize their descendants. I think I can override the holographic privacy settings. I can make us visible to the council. And then what? Minji asked. They'll capture us, mind wipe us, maybe kill us. Or, Daehyun said slowly, an idea forming. We make them listen. We show them that humans aren't the architects anymore. We're something different. Something that learned and grew from being small and limited. Maybe that's exactly what the architects needed and never had. He looked at the 8th throne, the empty seat that had waited 50,000 years for someone to claim it. Make us visible, Taiyang. It's time the council met their former friends. The council's debate stopped instantly when the four humans suddenly became visible in the chamber. Taiyang had done more than override the privacy settings. He had activated the 8th throne, making it glow with soft golden light that surrounded Daehyun and his crew like a protective shield. The lumens dimmed in shock. Impossible. They've been here the entire time, listening to everything. Not impossible, Daehyun said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Just unexpected. Like humans achieving space, travel 1,000 years ahead of your schedule. Like us finding this station when we were never supposed to know it existed. You keep underestimating us because you remember what you did to us, but you forgot to consider what we might become. The Shardborn's crystals spun faster, agitation clear in the movement. You understand nothing. You have heard pieces of history without context. The architects were our friends, yes, but they became dangerous. They threatened all existence with their pursuit of forbidden knowledge. You mean they discovered the truth, Hana said, stepping forward. That this reality is artificial. That we live inside a simulation. That's not forbidden knowledge. That's just uncomfortable truth that you didn't want to face. It's more than discomfort, the Deep Singer replied, its watery form rippling with emotion. The architects wanted to break through, to pierce the boundaries of our reality and reach whatever lies beyond. They built a device that could tear holes in the fabric of existence itself. Minji pulled out her datapad, showing the information they had gathered from the archives. We've studied their research. Yes, they were building a breaching device. But look at their calculations. They weren't trying to destroy reality. They were trying to expand it, to grow beyond the simulation and reach a higher level of existence. Based on incomplete mathematics, the Forgekin said. Theories that could not be tested without risking everything. They asked us to gamble all of reality on equations that might have been wrong. So instead you destroyed them, Daehyun said. Turned them into primitives and locked them on Earth like prisoners. You took away their choice because you were afraid of what they might discover. The stillborn's voice rumbled like an earthquake. We saved the universe. That was not cruelty. It was necessity. Maybe, Taiyang said, working his datapad as he spoke. But you made one mistake. You based your decision on fear, not on complete data. I've been analyzing the architect's research while you've been talking. Their math wasn't incomplete. It was revolutionary. Look at this. He projected holographic equations into the chamber, formulas that made the council members shift uncomfortably in their thrones. The architects figured out that reality has layers. Our universe isn't the only simulation. It's one of millions, all running simultaneously. The breaching device wouldn't have collapsed our reality. It would have connected it to others, opened doors between simulations. The risk you feared didn't exist. You cannot know that, the Lumen said, but its voice carried less certainty. Actually, we can, Minji said, Because we did what you are too afraid to do. We completed the architect's work, while you were debating whether to mind-wipe us. Taiyang and I rebuilt their equations using modern mathematics. The proof is solid. Reality can be breached safely. The architects were right all along. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Multiple beings tried to speak at once, voices overlapping in a dozen languages that the station struggled to translate. Enough. The whisper wind's voice cut through the noise like a blade. If what you say is true, if the architects were murdered for pursuing research that was actually safe, then we bear responsibility for the greatest crime in galactic history. We destroyed a species for nothing. Not for nothing, the root mind said quietly. We acted with the information we had. We could not risk waiting to see if the architects were right. The stakes were too high. The stakes were high for you, Hana said, her voice sharp with anger. But you weren't the ones who paid the price. Humans did. 50,000 years of ignorance. 50,000 years of being controlled and limited and pushed down every time we tried to rise. We paid for your fear with our freedom. Dai Haiyan moved toward the 8th throne. Security systems activated around the council chamber, weapons that had slept for millennia suddenly powering up. But the throne's golden light expanded, creating a barrier that the security systems couldn't penetrate. The station itself was protecting him, recognizing him as a descendant of its builders. You owe us, Dai Haiyan said simply. You owe humanity for what you took from us. And there's only one way to balance that debt. We will not allow humans to build breaching devices, the Starbound said firmly. Even if the math is safe, the philosophical implications are too dangerous. Connecting simulated realities, proving that nothing is truly real, it would destabilize every civilization in the galaxy. I'm not asking permission to build anything, Dai Haiyan replied. I'm asking for something simpler. The truth. Stop hiding from humanity. Stop controlling our development. Let us know what we are, what we were, and what we might become. Let us join the council as equals, not as prisoners finally granted parole. You want the 8th chair, the Deepsinger said, understanding dawning. I want humanity to have the 8th chair. Dai Haiyan corrected. Not me personally. I'm just the first. The one who stumbled through your defenses and found the truth you tried to bury. But there will be others. More explorers, more scientists, more humans asking questions you don't want to answer. You can keep fighting us, keep pushing us down every time we rise, or you can accept what we've become. And what have you become? The Lumens asked. Min Ji answered. Something the architects never were. They were powerful from the beginning, shaping worlds from the moment they achieved consciousness. They never knew weakness, never knew limitation, never learned patience. That's why they pushed too far too fast. They had the intelligence to discover the truth about reality, but not the wisdom to understand what that truth meant. But we had to learn, Hana continued. We started from nothing, from caves and stone tools. We built everything slowly, painfully, making mistakes and learning from them. We developed science not as a weapon, but as a way to understand our place in the universe. We're not trying to break reality. We're just trying to understand it. Taiyang added his piece. The architects saw the simulation boundaries and immediately wanted to breach them. We see the same boundaries, and our first instinct is to study them, to understand why they exist and what purpose they serve. That's the difference between godlike power without experience and hard-earned wisdom built on failure. We're what the architects might have become if they'd been allowed to grow up. The council members fell silent. For the first time in 50,000 years, they truly looked at humanity, not as a threat to be contained or a mistake to be corrected, but as something unexpected and potentially valuable. You accessed the archives, the root mind said slowly. The genetic trigger has activated. Within a generation, humans across Earth will begin remembering fragments of architect knowledge. We cannot stop this now without mass genocide. Then don't stop it, Aion said. Help us, guide us. Be the mentors and partners you were to the architects before fear made you into jailers. We're going to wake up whether you want us to or not. The only question is whether we do it alone or together. The stillborn spoke, its ancient voice heavy with consideration. If we agree to this, if we grant humanity membership in the Council, there must be conditions. You cannot pursue breaching technology without unanimous Council approval. You must accept monitoring to ensure the architect memories don't overwhelm your current culture. You must prove yourselves capable of the responsibility this knowledge brings. Agreed, Daihan said without hesitation. We're not asking to be treated as the architects reborn. We're asking to be treated as ourselves. As humans who deserve the chance to make our own choices and our own mistakes. There will be a vote, the Lumens announced, on whether to grant humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council, on whether to fill the 8th chair after 50 millennia of emptiness. This decision will reshape the galaxy. Choose carefully. The 7 council members retreated into their thrones, each one dimming as they communed with their respective species. Decisions of this magnitude couldn't be made by representatives alone. Entire civilizations would weigh in on whether to trust humanity with the truth. The wait lasted 3 hours. Daihan and his crew stood in the golden light of the 8th throne, while 7 ancient species deliberated on humanity's fate. Tai Yang used the time to dig deeper into the archives, uncovering layer after layer of history that the Council had tried to bury. What he found changed everything. Captain, Tai Yang called out, his voice shaking. There's something else. Something the Council didn't tell us. The Council members were still dimmed, lost in communion with their homeworlds. They couldn't hear the conversation happening in the shadow of the 8th throne. What is it? Daihan asked. The architects knew, Tai Yang said, pulling up files that had been hidden behind quantum locks. They knew what the Council was planning. They discovered the genetic weapon weeks before it was deployed. They had time to run. They could have fled to another galaxy, hidden in dimensional folds the Council couldn't access. They had the technology to survive. But they didn't run, Minji said, reading over his shoulder. Why? Tai Yang opened the final archive, a personal message left by the last Architect Council representative. Her face appeared on the holographic display, human features marked with sadness and understanding. When she spoke, her words were directed at someone specific. At descendants she knew would eventually find this place. If you're watching this, it means you made it back, she said. Our children's children, generations removed, but still carrying our legacy in your genes. I hope you don't hate us for what we chose to do. The recorded woman smiled sadly. The Council is afraid, not of our breaching device, but of what it represents. They've lived in this simulation for millions of years, built entire civilizations on the assumption that reality is solid and unchangeable. We proved it isn't. We proved that everything they know is just code running on a substrate they can't perceive. That's terrifying for species who need certainty. She stood up in the recording, walking around the same chamber where Daihan now stood. We could have fought back. We could have completed the device and breached reality despite their objections. We had the power to do it. But that would have made us tyrants, forcing our truth on beings who weren't ready for it. So we made a different choice. We accepted the genetic weapon. We let the Council revert us to primitives. But before we forgot everything, we built in a failsafe. A genetic trigger that would activate when our descendants achieved space travel on their own and found this station. Not the knowledge we were given, but knowledge you earned through struggle and growth. The recorded architect's eyes filled with tears. We weren't ready to understand what we discovered. We had power without wisdom, knowledge without patience. We needed to start over, to grow up the hard way, to learn what it means to be small before we could safely be big again. So we chose to become you, to give you the chance to be what we couldn't. The genetic trigger isn't just about remembering. It's about integration. When it activates, you won't become us. You'll become something new. A fusion of architect knowledge and human wisdom. The best of what we were and what you've become. That's our gift to you. Our apology for the burden you'll carry. Our hope for a better future. The recording ended. The four humans stood in silence, processing what they'd learned. They sacrificed themselves for us, Hana whispered. They chose to be destroyed so we could exist. Not destroyed, Minji corrected softly. Transformed. They didn't die. They became our ancestors. They're still here in our genes, waiting to wake up and merge with who we are now. The council members began to glow again, emerging from their communion. The lumens spoke first. We have reached a decision. 4 species voted in favor of granting humanity provisional council membership. 3 voted against. As per council law, a simple majority is sufficient to pass. Haiyan felt his heart race. 4-3. Humanity had won by a single vote. However, the lumens continued, there are conditions beyond what was previously stated. Captain Haiyan, you specifically,